5 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Gosh, the one thing that we don't talk about a whole lot is how our emotions can control the decisions that we make. I don't know if I'm making sense by saying it just like that, but I guess a great way to say this is let's say, for example, you're living in a town that doesn't really have the kind of opportunities that your talents could, like you could do better in New York, you could do better in LA. You've heard this before, right? People in a small town, they got to get to the bigger city because their talents aren't in that small town. But you've got an emotional attachment, right? And it's like, yeah, this is where my family is. This is where I grew up. I could do that acting thing here, or I could do whatever it may be. Joshua Freedman is on the phone. He is a teacher. He's a specialist on emotional intelligence. And this is going to be very fascinating. So I'm glad we have him on for a good 25 minutes. He's the CEO of 6 Seconds, which is a global nonprofit dedicated to emotional intelligence. He's written a book called Inside Change, Transforming Your Organization with Emotional Intelligence. And in addition to that, he wants to talk about bullying, how to stop bullying, how to stop school violence. And if you think about it, a lot of these outbursts are because of emotion. There was a story this morning about a rash of suicides, teenage suicides in Japan. Mm-hmm. Again, you could probably trace emotions to that. And if there's a way to nip that in the bud, or whatever phrase we should use on that, gosh, wouldn't that be wonderful? Maybe Joshua Freedman has some ideas on this. Joshua Freedman, good morning, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Where are you right now?
I'm in California, near the beach in Santa Cruz.
Well, thank you for getting up early. I love California, by the way.
I love Florida. So.
Oh, really? Nice. Really? Well, that's good. It's mutual love of each other's land, or at least our current homes. So when we talk about emotional intelligence, explain what that is, and is it measurable?
So emotions are real. They're something everybody has, and we can ignore them and sort of be idiotic with them, or we can pay attention to them and try to use them more carefully. That's emotional intelligence. And yes, it can be measured. We have a number of assessments are out there. We publish an incredibly interesting assessment for adults and for youth to help them look at these skills and the sub-skills of emotional intelligence and figure out where they need to develop and what they need to work on to use emotions more effectively.
Okay, there's so much we need to learn in a short period of time, but let me take a shot at this and see if it goes anywhere. I would imagine that you could trace emotions to your ego. You could trace emotions to the love you have for a family member. If there's somebody picking on a family member, that could be a trace. It might not be about yourself, but you could trace your emotions to the highway. I mean, if you get the highway rage, I don't know if that's considered ego or what that is. So is that part of this, is figuring out what part of your inner being the emotions are coming from?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too psychological about it and just say, look, we all have feelings. They're there. And the first step is to recognize what you're feeling. And okay, I'm mad, I'm sad, I'm afraid, I'm excited, I'm happy, I'm vexed, I'm peeved. There are 3,000 words for feelings in English, and I think most of us use about 4.
Yeah, right. So how do we know? I mean, how do we help somebody? Let's say, for example, all right, I'm going to give a worst case scenario, and I don't mean to bring anybody down, but let's say you're at the funeral of a teenager. And that funeral is because that teenager committed suicide. And at the funeral, people are talking about the poetry, the art, and other things that may have been a clue, but nobody saw it. Mm-hmm. So how do we use what you're talking about to prevent, to turn back the clock on that little story I just told and make there be no funeral? How do we do that?
I was recently doing a presentation for a middle school. Where we had teens and parents together, young teenagers and their parents together. And I asked them, what are some things that you find it really difficult to talk about with each other? And they wrote them down on cards, and we put them up on the screen in 4-foot-high letters. And right in front of the room, there they are, these big things that are hard to talk about. And, of course, suicide was one of them. And what the point that I brought out to them is, The harder things are to talk about, the more trust we need. The more trust we need in our relationship in order to be able to talk about those difficult things. And trust is an emotion. Trust is a signal about safety, and it says we can connect and we can work together on this. And so what I would say is the most important thing for all of us as parents and as teachers is to build trusting relationships with the children around us, to be trustworthy, and to help them feel trust. It's not something you know, it's something you feel. And if people feel trust, then they're going to be much more able to talk about things before it gets to the point where that tragedy occurs.
Okay, so let's go back and look at whatever the typical family is today compared to what the typical family may have been 100 years ago. Have we caused some of these problems by being so isolated from one another instead of sitting at the dinner table and talking or working together to build a fence? Or that kind of thing, where we're kind of all, I've got my world, I got my iPod, and I'm in my own little world. Or is that part of the problem?
Well, I think one of the reasons why teaching emotional intelligence today is so important is that stress is going up. One study showed 30% increase in stress in 20 years. Loneliness is going up. Isolation is going up. There's a paradox here that we have all of these ways of connecting, and yet people feel less connected. And that's affecting young people and adults. And in that context of complexity and disconnection, it's harder to manage the emotional side of relationships and come together and build those foundations that are going to let us cope with the problems that are part of our lives. And so I would say, yes, we are causing this problem. I mean, I don't know that any of us is individually saying, hey, I want to make my child's life miserable. But we are living in a time and place of intense complexity. And I think sometimes we look at kids and we think, oh, what's going on for them is kind of like what went on for us. But it's not. It's very, very different, and it's dramatically more intense and complex. And so we have a responsibility to support them to learn the skills they need to navigate that complexity.
And then you also have the other scenario where all of the signs are there. The children are writing things, they're talking to the parents, but the parents are just ignoring them for one reason or the other. They're just ignoring the whole situation, and then the kids can go off the deep end because the parents don't want to deal with it.
Can you imagine how painful it would be as a parent to start seeing these signals that your child is really suffering, and to feel like you don't have the skills, you don't know how to deal with that? And I think, again, just as we need to teach kids these skills, we need to teach parents these skills. And we have a free e-learning course for parents, by the way, to start learning about emotional intelligence and some skills they can develop to be able to first notice their own feelings and to handle those feelings more elegantly. Did you guys see Inside Out?
No, we haven't received the book yet.
The Pixar movie Inside Out about that girl Riley and her emotions.
No.
Oh no, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, so I think they did a pretty amazing job of saying, look, we all have all these feelings, and actually they're there for a reason. And the kind of central plot of the movie is that these emotions that are inside this girl's head, she has to understand the value of those feelings, and the feelings have to understand each other, and to start seeing that even a feeling like sadness has value to us. It's not that some feelings are good and some feelings are bad. We have all these feelings for a reason, and we can start to tune into those as a source of wisdom.
The book is called Inside Change. We need to take a little break, and then when we come back, I'm sure we're never going to cover all of this in the short interview we're doing, but it is certainly fascinating, and we have so many more questions. As a man, as a human, as a father, as a son, I mean, I can think of different emotions that apply to all of the different titles that I give to myself. I'm sure you can do the same thing. So we'll take a little break and be right back with Joshua Freedman. This is WOCA.
It's rodeo time in Ocala. The Great Ocala Shrine Rodeo stampedes back to town September 4th and 5th, 7:30 nightly. Witness America's #1 sport and the greatest show on dirt as cowboys ride to help children walk. 33 years of broncs, bulls, and babes. For tickets and information, call 352-402-8808. September 4th and 5th. Don't miss the Ocala Shrine Rodeo.
What you may have missed on the John Tesh Radio Show.
Women are more likely to feel stressed at night than men, and here's why. Because even after working all day, women typically come home to chores and childcare, while men kick back with a beer and watch TV, right? The way we feel when we indulge in a forbidden food like a Philly cheesesteak has a major impact on our ability to stick with our diet. Pet ownership, it has been linked to less stress, lower blood pressure, and better heart health.
Intelligence for your life on the John Tesh Radio Show. Don't miss this stuff.
Do you have areas that have started sagging or drooping? Is what you're looking at not quite the same as it was years ago? Are there enhancements you've been putting off? Is there serious damage you need fixed? Then call on us, Damage Control Services, when your roof is sagging and the drywall is drooping after a storm, or your home just needs some enhancements. From damage repairs to new construction, Damage Control Services is here to help.
17 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Nice looking Tuesday, and the remnants of what used to be Hurricane Erica are coming our way, and there's nothing to be worried about. It's just that we'll have some heavy rain and probably some lightning and thunder by 2 o'clock this afternoon, just so you know. But it's really nothing more than a normal storm. It just happens to be connected to what would have been a bad thing if it hadn't dissipated. Joshua Freedman is on the phone. He's written a book called Inside Change. And also I want to make sure we ask him about 6 Seconds, which is the nonprofit that he has created. Joshua, you know what I was thinking during the break is that we have so many things in our lives at different points in our lives. When you have your first crush on a girl and she turns out she doesn't give 2 cents about you, and then you have an emotion about that, and you have this stereotype that men don't have emotions. There's that issue too. I mean, does it all? I mean, that seems like a foolish thing to buy into, but a lot of people do buy into that one.
Yeah, and what's great about the neuroscience is that we can show that emotion exists for all of us. It's affecting all of our thinking. It's affecting all of our behavior. It's a wonderful neuroscientist named Antonio Damasio who wrote, "Emotions are enmeshed in the neural networks of reason." In other words, we literally cannot separate thoughts and feelings. You know, that old cliche, like leave emotions out of it. We can only do that when we're unconscious. Emotions are part of every single decision that we make. And it's wonderful because it gives us this signal to pay attention to opportunities and threats, to notice the moments of our lives that are important. And if we got rid of emotion, you know, we would also get rid of passion and joy and excitement and wonder and surprise and curiosity.
Right.
All these things that we want for ourselves, for our kids, for our employees, for teachers, you know, everywhere in life. The emotions are a part of what makes us human.
There was a story this morning in the news about a guy who got shot down in the Orlando area. They were making a TV show. I guess they have a TV show for the World Wrestling, WWE, the wrestling thing. Anyway, so the guy had a fixation, according to the news. That was the word they used, a fixation on one of the female wrestlers. And apparently he got out of control, and so he charged the deputy, and the deputy shot him, and hopefully he's going to be okay. He's in his 20s, young guy in his 20s. So, of course, everybody says, oh, gosh, he really had the hots for her. And I have no idea how the guy, because when you have a fascination with a celebrity like that, it's often, it doesn't even make any sense, but it doesn't change the emotional part of it at all. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, we are strange creatures, and we're not just rational. And maybe in some ways it'd be easier if we were just rational.
Yeah.
But that's an irrational approach because we're not. So thinking about ourselves and each other as just rational, I mean, that's irrational. Let's get with the program here and say emotions are part of who we are and what makes us tick, and let's tune into that force and understand it and use it in a way that's healthy and that prevents us from doing stupid things like that.
Can I ask you a question? Do people who are very, very smart about our emotions know how to manipulate them and therefore manipulate us? For example, a political leader could manipulate us as an entire group of people.
Right.
Sure. I mean, there's Hitler is a classic example, right, of somebody who's an incredible manipulator and incredibly influential and very strong ability to use people's emotions and also their thoughts in a way to create horrible behavior. I would like to distinguish something you just said, being smart about emotion and being smart with emotion.
Okay.
I wrote an article many years ago for a magazine for 8-9-year-olds, and I had to come up with a way of talking about emotional intelligence for that level. And I first wrote, it's smarter with feelings. And then I realized, I just said that wrong. I wrote, it's smarter about feelings. And then I realized, there are a lot of people who are smart about feelings. They know what they are, they can talk about them, they can manipulate them, but they're not necessarily smart with feelings. They're not necessarily using their emotions in their daily lives in a way that's really smart or really wise would be a bigger goal. And being able to tune into and connect with your own and others' emotions, it's interesting because I actually think it's one of the sources of human morality. There's some research that shows that people who are psychopathic, they don't have empathy. They're not smart with others' emotions. They don't tune into that data. There's some research that shows that people who have eating disorders and other psychological problems are disconnected from their own emotion. Mm-hmm. So emotion helps us regulate ourselves and connect with each other and work smoothly in sort of the fabric of life. But it's about connecting, not just sort of standing back and evaluating.
And there's so much pressure now put on the students about tests that they have to get the tests right before they can move on to something else because of the state and federal regulations. Sometimes people will equate IQs with your EQ description, but that's not correct. Is that right?
Right. So we tend to focus in academic life on cognitive skills, retaining mathematical data, linguistic data, putting things in order. And I actually think comparing mathematical intelligence to emotional intelligence is a pretty easy way to understand it. We use mathematical intelligence to get numerical data and make sense of it and use it to solve math problems. Well, we use emotional intelligence to tune into emotional data and make sense of it and use it to solve emotional problems. But we get what we measure, and in schools we're really focused on cognitive skills and not even just IQ, but even more basic, simplistic things about, can you memorize this list? And that's our focus in school, and that's what kids are learning how to do, and they're not actually solving problems, and they're not paying enough attention to the most basic thing in school, which is the human relationship. And so we encourage schools to measure student emotional intelligence, teacher emotional intelligence, and really put a focus on that. And we have tools that are very low cost and easy to use and powerful to help bring that data into the classroom, into the school as a whole. And we can also measure school climate, which is about the level of safety and belonging and connectedness in that school, and what is the context for learning. And the research is quite clear that context that we set up is a determining factor in whether or not students learn effectively.
So an emotion that I'm aware of in my own self is grumpiness. and whenever I am grumpy, I have a really great solution for it, and it works 99, if not 100% of the time. I take a nap. If I'm grumpy, I take a nap, and it could be a 20-minute nap, and whatever grumpy was there is gone.
I love naps.
Yeah. But my naps take longer than 6 seconds, so I'm trying to figure out if 6 seconds, the name of your nonprofit, actually implies that you can change your emotion in 6 seconds.
Yes, you can. And emotions are chemicals that last in our brain and bodies for about 6 seconds. Anytime we're feeling something for longer than 6 seconds, at some level, unconsciously, we're choosing to recreate and add more and more fuel to that fire. You think about, having an argument with your spouse, and you say something, and then you think, how could she do that? And then, you fuel it, and you fuel it, and you fuel it. But each little burst of chemical lasts for about 6 seconds.
Really?
Yeah, so if we can just slow down the reaction, your mom told you to count to 10. It's not quite that simple. We need to engage our brains for about 6 seconds, step out from this reaction, and get curious, and we can shift the emotion quite quickly.
Is there a practical purpose for keeping the emotion going? In other words, the 6 second thing, let's say, if I'm on the defensive, I can't think of an example better than this, but there might be one. Somebody's breaking into my house, and I have to have this emotion because I'm going to be, only way I can handle him is if I have this emotion going.
Sure. If you imagine your, great whatever grandfather's walking through the jungle, and there's some wrestling in the jungle, and he gets alert, and he's like watching out, and his buddy, gets alert and then just totally relaxes, but your great ancestor is still on alert, and then when the tiger jumps out, it eats his buddy instead of eating him. So there's an adaptive value of being able to stay on alert, to have emotion signals about opportunities and threats to persist. And that's why we have moods, and moods last longer than 6 seconds.
And there's always something stereotypical. I mean, people will say, oh, you're from the South, so you generate this kind of resonance. You're from the Northeast, you generate this kind of resonance. You're from Berkeley, which... And you're supposed to act this way. Yeah, so I mean, I just can't understand why people get stereotyped and pigeonholed.
You know why? It's because it's easier for our brains to put people into categories, and our brains really like efficiency. And it's a virtue vice. It helps our brains operate very quickly. We don't have to evaluate every person and every situation as new. But the downside is we make a lot of generalizations. And we have an interesting cognitive bias, which is not about our emotion, it's about our intellect, which is we tend to look for data that supports our existing conclusion. So people who are listening right now who are saying, yeah, I agree with that Josh guy, they're finding all the pieces of things that I'm saying that they agree with, and they're reinforcing their thinking. It's interesting because emotion precedes analysis. We feel, oh, yeah, that's right. And then we start finding the facts to support that conclusion. And that's just a kind of laziness. And I think that one of the keys here in emotional intelligence is to be tuning in a little bit more closely to our own biases, our own filters, our own mood of saying, okay, why am I coming to this conclusion? And is that really accurate? And IQ, intelligence quotient, and EQ, emotional quotient, actually work together to help us solve problems more effectively by tuning into all this data and being more accurate.
Wow.
The website is at least one of the websites I have is 6seconds.org. I just went to it. I haven't really explored it yet, but it's the numeral 6 and then the word seconds.org. Is the book available on that website?
There's info on the book. There's tons of free articles and information. We're a not-for-profit organization, so we put lots of stuff out there for free. We also have another website, which is eq.org. And if you're a parent or if you're a teacher or if you're a manager, we have free e-learning courses on eq.org for you. And you can go over there and learn some skills and find some things to practice. This sounds a little abstract and esoteric when you start, but it turns out that it's really easy to start developing and using your emotional intelligence. So I encourage people to give it a shot.
It does seem like something we should be more skilled at because it might affect how we vote. It might affect how we raise our children.
Yeah.
It might affect how we have our relationships with each other.
And how we feel about ourselves.
Absolutely, yeah. Joshua, that was a great interview. Thank you so much for being on with us to talk about this. The book, again, is called Inside Change. Joshua Freedman, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill in Rowan County, Kentucky, outside the county courthouse. Do your job chance directed at County Clerk Kim Davis for again refusing to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples, countered by this. Chance of stand firm from those supporting Davis, who's defying a Supreme Court order. She could face contempt charges with fines and jail time. Another move by Pope Francis reflecting his central theme of mercy.
Francis decreed that any priest worldwide can forgive those who abort or help procure one. Abortion is considered one of the gravest sins of the Catholic Church and incurs an automatic excommunication. But the Argentinian pontiff wrote that he knows many women who bore the scars of this agonizing and painful decision.
Fox Radio's Courtney Walsh. On Wall Street, stocks getting slammed again. The Dow's been down about 300 points with more disappointing economic news from China. Fox News, we report, you decide.
There is something about the road that beckons, that invites us to pack up the family and leave the world behind. And there is something about an industry-leading unlimited mileage warranty on a certified pre-owned Mercedes-Benz that gives us the freedom to do exactly that. You take to the highway, rack up the miles for up to 3 years, and drive with the assurance that your Mercedes-Benz is covered. You have the security of being in a car that has been certified to Mercedes-Benz standards, while you enjoy a carefree ownership experience for miles and miles. But while the mileage is unlimited, your time to take advantage of our certified pre-owned sales event is not. Now through September 30th, you can also receive complimentary prepaid maintenance and your first 2 months payments on us on select models, plus 3 months of Sirius XM satellite radio. So hurry into your authorized Mercedes-Benz dealer today and see why we say the odometer is there to record the memories.
See your authorized Mercedes-Benz dealer for complete details and limitations on certified pre-owned warranties.
Ocala Aviation now has opportunities for flight instructors.
Wait, hold on. Brad, is this correct? You're looking for instructors, not students?
Actually, we're looking for both.
Well, that's descriptive.
Well, I need flight instructors because we're now affiliated with a major university and can offer 4-year degrees. Plus, we're also approved to work directly with VA students.
Okay, so a degree in what, and what's a VA student?
Well, it's a bachelor's degree in aeronautics, which includes a commercial pilot's license, and there's financial aid available. By VA students, I mean veterans. They now have access to new benefits to pay for flight training.
Okay, so you have new opportunities for new students. What about the instructor side of it?
Well, with new students, we need more instructors.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
So, if anyone out there is a flight instructor, I want to encourage them to come see me. And if they're not an instructor but have their commercial license, we can help them become an instructor.
So they get their instructor license and have a job too.
Exactly.
So you got a lot going on. The VA, the college, and now hiring instructors and future instructors too.
Yep. So now can we get the commercial started?
Already ahead of you.
Call Brad to get your adventure started today at Ocala Aviation, 861-7484.
You've got a garden and we've got a show for you called You've Got a Garden with your host, Master Gardener Carol Ann Baldwin. Carol Ann answers your questions about your flowers, your veggies, your grass, your trees, even questions about your bugs. And she's only on WOCA, so don't miss Carol Ann Baldwin and You've Got a Garden each Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. right here on WOCA The Source.
Career Source Citrus Levy Marion brings together business and community partners, economic development leaders, and educational providers to connect employers with qualified, skilled talent and job seekers with employment and career development opportunities. Tune in the first and third Wednesday of each month at 9:30 a.m. to Career Source Citrus Levy Marion and learn how they can help you.
Here are today's headlines from The Source, WOCA. An Orange County deputy shot a man accused of trespassing outside the WWE Performance Center in Orlando yesterday afternoon. Orange County Sheriff Jerry Dennings said deputies responded after staff at the Performance Center reported a man trespassing on the property. The Performance Center is on Forsyth Commerce Road in the Azalea Park area, east of Orlando Executive Airport. The center is about 3 miles south of Full Sail University, where WWE records its NXT series of pro wrestling shows. Demings said when deputies arrived, the suspect, a 29-year-old Hispanic male, charged at them in the Performance Center's parking lot. That prompted one of the deputies, identified as Corporal Stephen Wall, to open fire, hitting the suspect once. The suspect, who was not immediately identified, was taken to Orlando Regional Medical Center with life-threatening injuries and was last listed in stable condition. WWE referred to the suspect in a statement released yesterday as a deranged individual with no WWE affiliation who had a court order prohibiting him from being on WWE property. Sheriff Dennings said the man had a fixation with one of the female wrestlers. Drivers here in Florida should find the lowest Labor Day gas prices in a decade. That news comes from analysts with AAA Auto Club Group, who says the current state average is running to $2.31 per gallon for regular grade fuel. The present price is $1.06 below what we were paying this time last year. Mark Jenkins, a spokesman for AAA, said these prices will be an added incentive for people to take a road trip this Labor Day weekend. Low gasoline prices are an added boost in disposable income, giving travelers more money to spend on lodging, shopping, and dining out, he added. The current national average price of gasoline is $2.48, 12 cents lower than a week ago and 95 cents lower than this time last year. The Volusia County Sheriff's Office has launched a field test of body-worn cameras for its deputies in the field. The office says the 2-month field test is expected to be one of the last steps towards outfitting more than 150 of the agency's deputies with body cameras to record and document evidence as they carry out their enforcement duties. A strong proponent of using the recording devices in police work, Sheriff Ben Johnson said he's anxious to deploy cameras in the field and is confident that their use will be embraced by the community. To ensure a smooth implementation process, the Sheriff's Office established a multidisciplinary task team that has been examining a wide range of issues related to the body cameras, such as equipment capabilities, software needs, evidence storage, retention, and public records issues, as well as policy development and matters related to training, legal, privacy, purchasing, and personnel issues. Marion County School Superintendent George Tommen and the Marion County Public Schools system have kicked off a new month-long campaign emphasizing the importance of school attendance with a campaign called Attendance Matters. Last school year in Marion County, 17.8% of elementary students missed at least 10 days of class. Middle and high school students both reached nearly 20%, including excused and unexcused absences. The press release states that parents of elementary students will receive periodic phone calls, emails, and messages encouraging students to attend class every day. Younger students will see reminders on morning television announcements and school marquees. Middle and high school students will also see marquee messages, posters, and classroom reminders to be in school every day. The goal is to increase the district's overall attendance rate by at least 1 percentage point. School district attendance specialists will all use data to better track attendance and reach out to the students. And those are the headlines from The Source, WOCA 96.3 FM and 1370 AM.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. For today, more clouds and sun with a couple of showers and a heavy thunderstorm or two around. Watch for flooding downpours into the evening hours. Today's high 86 to 90. Later tonight, partly to mostly cloudy, low 72 to 76. Clouds and some sun, warm and humid tomorrow with a shower and thunderstorm around in the afternoon, high 89 to 93. Thursday, partly sunny with a couple of afternoon thunderstorms, high 89 to 93. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
La Famiglia Pizzeria has moved into Ocala. Stop by today at 2504 Southeast 17th Street and see for yourself what everyone is talking about.
Awesome place. I never get pizza anywhere else.
Great New York style pizza and dishes.
Best pizza in Ocala.
One trip and you'll agree La Famiglia Pizzeria is the best. La Famiglia Pizzeria. Stop by for a pizza that you'll love or call in and order yours for pickup. 352-245-2419. La Famiglia Pizzeria.
Do you drink bottled water because you don't like the taste of your tap water or you suspect it's not safe?
Not anymore. I went to SafewayWater.com. Their water doctors make free house calls and they are trained water treatment professionals.
If your water is under the weather or you're dealing with well water problems, call Safeway Water at 855-999-SAFE.
And be sure to drink plenty of water each day to keep the doctor away. Safeway Water.
SafewayWater.com.
The Appleton Museum of Art has a full schedule this fall of studio art classes for all ages and abilities. Kids can enjoy after-school classes and special programming on school half-days and the first Saturday of every month. Adults can take everything from calligraphy to painting to wheel throwing. For schedules and class descriptions, visit appletonmuseum.org or call 352-291-4455. Bring your creativity to the Appleton Museum of Art, located at 4333 East Silver Springs Boulevard.
Hey, Mary Poppins!
Yes, she's coming to Ocala, and you don't want to miss this high-flying musical. The Ocala Civic Theater has done it again with the performance of Mary Poppins. Don't miss the magic live on stage at the Ocala Civic Theater. Mary Poppins, a perfect treat for the whole family. Performances from September 3rd to October 4th. For